Hello and welcome to Falco meets MITRE. Run any Falco installation against Atomic Red. Before we begin, a few words about myself. My name is Stefan Trimborn. I'm an enterprise sales engineer at Sysdig, and in short, I'm just described as a huge nerd. So anything in regards of pop culture or anything IT related, that's my cup of tea. And why is that so important to know? Because IT always comes with security. And this is what we want to talk about today. So, many of you have heard runtime security. And yes, we are also going to talk about it. But what exactly is runtime security? Imagine a security camera in a shopping mall or anywhere on the streets. Usually, we are a lot of people out there. We're walking around, we're carrying our handbags or whatever. But sometimes someone behaves oddly. But as you can see in the picture right now, it's getting difficult to see who is behaving maybe abnormal or who is maybe just scratching the back of their head. It's really important to understand or to have a mechanism to see what's good and what's bad. If we translate this into technology terms, in runtime security, you would see detect malicious behavior, for example. So if we talk about runtime in regards of container security, what we are basically talking about today, you want to make sure that your container image is running as intended, that nothing runs out of the ordinary, and you want to make sure you are protected against zero-day threats or any kind of threats you not even know about. That also includes, well, in the one part you are secured, but you also want to be informed about it and you want to react to it, because security is only as good as you can react to it, can actually use the information the security is providing to you. Also, if something has happened, you want to make sure that you can figure out what exactly happened. Or in other words, you want to be able to provide some forensics. And last but not least, you want to be compliant at the end of the day, because let's face it, most of us are working with customer data, and there can't be anything worse than losing that kind of data in modern times or to compromise those data, which could harm your customers. Again, in the modern day and age, we are producing a lot of information that also includes log files. And let's face it, we all have seen the screenshots I just provided here. We have either seen a black shell, boring window with lots of text coming in and lots of information to dig through. Or if you're more advanced, you are able to select the information you gathered, you can color it so you can read it better. But in the end, we still have to dig through a lot of information and make sure that the information that is provided to us by the many different tools and aspects, that they are actually pointing out if something is not working as intended or something malicious is happening. And by the end of the day, the worst thing that could happen is that you got all this information as seen in the picture here, but you cannot identify the bad things behind it, the spilled password or the exfiltrated data. And this is where we want to head in our discussion today. What can you actually do to see those malicious behavior, and how can you make sure that what you have made in place is actually working in your favor? So, as the title of this section says, we're going to talk about Falco. But what is Falco actually? Falco has been an open source incubated project which has been sponsored to the Cloud Native Computing Foundation and is basically a security framework with the main focus of concentrating to secure Kubernetes environments, but it also provides Linux and Linux host capabilities to secure your environment. Who was the sponsor of this project, you might ask? Well, that is Sysdig indeed. Of course, if you want to learn more about Falco at this particular moment, please don't hesitate to visit falco.org to get more information. But we are here to explain what Falco is actually all about. And this is a very, very high level view of it. And it's basically Falco takes your system calls, regardless of Linux operating host or container or Kubernetes, runs those system calls via or through a security framework and provides you information or behavior and provides alerting based on what we can see and what the framework provides to you, and you can set up your alerts in regards. Of course, security is not fairy dust and it has to work somehow. So what we are basically doing, Falco comes in two flavors. The first flavor is we provide a kernel module which is injected into your kernel to grab all those good system call informations I was referring to before. If you say, wait a second, no kernel module is being injected into my kernel, but you would provide us eBPF, yes, Falco can use eBPF to integrate into your kernel to receive the information we need to analyze your data and to run it through our security framework. So, in basis, if you look through a complete life cycle of an application in general, from build to run to response, we are right in the sweet spot in the middle. Falco is a runtime detection mechanism, and we are able to provide you the insight we were describing before, so you can respond and react to certain findings within your environment. So this is all nice and looking great, but so what can Falco actually do? I provided you with a list of popular Falco detection rules. Don't worry, I will not go through all the rules you can see here, but be assured that we have quite a lot of use cases you might have heard at least once. One of those examples is a terminal shell. So if you have worked with containers, you know that containers are there to do one job, and the job is what you have intended them to do. Could be a database, could be data collecting, could be web server, anything in regards running in a container. And usually if you have to update a container or the libraries within a container or binaries, you will not go into a container and run yum update or apt-get install. No, you would rather rebuild the container with the latest versions and kill it off then. So, in this case, a terminal inside a shell is usually not supposed to happen. So we can detect that. Also, you might have a couple, or I hope you don't have, but it could happen that you have vulnerabilities inside your images. And those vulnerabilities, if they are disclosed, you of course have some side effects, like pseudo bypassing, kubectl copies that can be malicious, and so on. And if something in that of a known behavior, remote chats could be also an example. If that happens, you want to be there and want to be notified on those vulnerabilities or misused vulnerabilities. And the rules you see here are just the popular examples. There are many more to find out and use in your environment. To give you a little bit more insight, I provided you here with a Falco rule example, access bin directory. So in general, you should not place any file except the intended installed binary files in the typical folders like /bin, /sbin, and so on. You're not supposed to put in any files in there, like documents or database files or something like that. So in this case, you right now see here on the screen a Falco rule, which will basically alert us if something has been stored at /bin. And it would look like that. So in this little example, yeah, it's a bit inactive, but don't worry, we are going to go to the active part quite soon. So here you can see that I switched to user bin. I just created a little file called $x. And if we look into the Falco events, like in the log files here, you see that this, what I did, the actions have been recorded and been alerted, including the user which did the task, the user ID, which command was used, and what were the parent commands. As you can see here, there was a sudo run before the actual touch command was even used. We can get those kind of informations quite easily with the capabilities of Falco I described in the beginning. The same goes for a Kubernetes environment. So in that case, I did a terminal shell in a container. As said, this is not a usual behavior. What we can see here now, it's a bit stretched, but you can see here as well, I executed into the container and we can get a lot of information, like in which namespace we are running around, what rule was triggered, what terminal I used. Like you could even see that I used a bash shell in that case, and even without knowing the command I used before, you would see that in the Falco alert seen below. So some of you might tell me now, okay, this is nice, but this is all running in the CLI. I need something I can share with my team. I need something more visible and, yeah, let's face it, a little bit more eye-pleasing. I fully understand that. I grew also up with nice pictures on the television, so I like my content colorful as well. So here we go again with a nice open source project which also comes with Falco, and it's Falco Sidekick. Falco Sidekick allows us not only to see the alertings which we were able to see before, but it is also capable of sharing such information as it is here shown with the Prometheus logo. So you will also have a nice tool to graphically show you the data and to redirect it with REST API capabilities. How does it look like? So this is how events would look like in a more graphical feed, and I will show you that in action quite in a second. And yeah, this is basically another summary. Where could you go from this point on to get started with Falco? If you are intending to contribute to Falco, there are many resources, and first of all, falco.org and our GitHub project, where you can absolutely contribute to Falco, and we are more than happy to have you in our community. But as promised, we want to have, first of all, a little bit more action, and everyone is telling security is nice, but is there a way to test it? And this is also where the MITRE part comes in. Some of you might have already heard about Atomic Red or the Atomic Red team. Atomic Red has one simple task, but is very important. They are providing libraries with attack patterns which are mapped to the MITRE attack framework. You can leverage their knowledge basically to test your security environment. You can find more information about Atomic Red team at atomicredteam.io. We took a look into Atomic Red, and we provided a very nice article, which you can see here in the link now, which is showing off Falco together with Atomic Red. What do we need to do this. And yes, you can actually do the same demo I'm providing you here right now in your own little lab environment, for example. You need a standard Kubernetes cluster. You need Falco up and running. And believe me, the default rule set is completely fine, which comes directly with a standard Falco installation. The next step is you need to build a test container based on the Atomic Red Docker container we provided in our GitHub, which is of course publicly available. And you should, in regards of your tests, you should either create a job, so a single running instance of this container, or a deployment where you can yeah, that sounds funny now, but you can execute a shell into the container. Yes, of course, you should see that in Falco as well. And inside the container, you can run multiple tests. Don't worry about it. All is documented in our blog. So you can actually browse in our blog how you can facilitate different tests. In my demo, I will go the easy road and will run the container fully automated as a job. But hey, we are all talking security here. You should never ever trust any binary or resource or container in this case and just run it in your environment, right? You never know what goods come with the container. So here is a short summary what is inside this container you're about to build or you're about to see having me run in my environment. So it is a Ubuntu-based image. It comes set up, or it is predefined with the most nasty tools, as we put it here, like Netcat, NetTools, Nmap, rsync, Samba, and so many more, which attackers usually also facilitate to either grab information within your network or to move or lateral move inside your environment. And now comes the kicker. Yes, you are reading and hearing correctly. It is powered and running with Microsoft PowerShell, yes, inside an Ubuntu image. Well, we all know that Microsoft by now loves open source and they're doing a swell job with PowerShell. So Atomic team decided to use the power of PowerShell to run the different kind of tests inside the container. Now another good question. Again, we're talking security here. Can I take a pre-built image from Docker Hub if I just look for Atomic Red? I would not recommend it. Why is that? Quite simple. There are some really destructive scenarios inside the tests, which if they are misconfigured, or maybe intended to be configured like that, but you still don't know what they're doing, they could end up with RM minus RF. Or in other words, in straight words, if the tests are misconfigured, they could actually do harm to your system. So please take your time, either consult the Atomic Red project on GitHub or our description in the Sysdig GitHub repository, and please read through the manuals so you can still use your system and don't accidentally delete all your stuff. Enough slides for now. I promised you I want to show you some action, and we are diving in right now. Before we begin with the actual action, I wanted to show you Falco Sidekick. So here we are. As you can see, it is running inside my environment, and currently it's quite boring because nothing has happened in the last 24 hours. Yes, there has been some errors or messages going around, but they're a bit older, and I want to show you right and freshly recreated alerts that we can inspect here in the Falco Sidekick UI. What is the system I'm currently working on? So it's a plain vanilla Kubernetes system, nothing really special, and it has Falco already set up. Falco is nothing more than a Helm chart. I will not concentrate in this demo on how to install Falco because, to be honest, it's really nothing more than two commands: adding the Helm repository and running the Helm chart with the additional options you need to run Falco with Falco Sidekick. This is all documented in our GitHub repository. And as you can see now, there's nothing else really going on. A little bit of metal load balancer to access the Falco UI, the Sidekick UI, as you can see here, but nothing else is really going on. So now let's have a little bit more insight. First of all, let's check together if my Falco instance is still up and running. So what I want to do is I will look into the logs, go into the Falco namespace, and let's pick one of the pods I have running. And as you can see, it's still running and listening to what's going on. So this should be working fine. Let's switch to another window. Here, as you can see, I have also created all the resources we need for the atomic red test. Let's have a look. Here you can see I provided both files. I can either run the container I was mentioning before as a deployment or as a job. Let's have a look at the Docker file first. As promised, it's a Ubuntu-based image. It installs the nasty stuff we need to do our harmful things. And as stated, it will run on PowerShell. So what I haven't said before is, but you will find that in the documentation, the rules can be of course changed so you can make sure that you do no harms to your system. You can do that with the Atomics overrides folder, where you can find the rules and the rules descriptions and settings, and they will be copied into the image. So the tests, the automated tests, know what to do or not to do. Again, you will find that in the documentation. When you have created your container image, let's have a look at the job. Because I'm a lazy guy, I want to have everything automated up and running. So this is the job. Here you can see I have my image already created. Those are the tests, as you can also see, aligned to the MITRE attack framework. Those are the tests that are supposed to be run. And I got still the default Kubernetes options. So nothing really special in that case. So on to the next step. Let's create the job. All right, I will create the job now. I can double check if the job has been created. Yeah, there it is. And of course, it is not completed yet. If we wait a little longer, then we will see that the job will complete. In the meantime, let's have another look at our Falco logs. Now, as you can see, Falco is spewing around error messages and detections and so on. So basically, all I have told you before, we have now here as we wanted or as intended. We have quite a lot of tests running in here, and we want to make sure that those tests are now, that we can make sure that the tests are actually doing what they're supposed to do. So here we go. Let's have a look. So now we have the logs in front of us. Let's have a look at the graphical view of the things. I will update my Falco Sidekick UI. And now, as you can see, it has been filled. I still have my 24 hours range. So yeah, there was no change. But now I get all the different informations we are looking forward to. So first of all, the sources are all syscalls. We have different priorities, and those alerts have been tagged. So we can actually look into the different tags to see what is going on. If we go down in the routes, we can see where those routes have been hit. So there were a lot of right below etc going on in my system. Writing below root, deleting or renaming shell history, and so many more. You can also see the timeline and the priority again. And if you want to have more insight of the events, you can switch to events. And remember, what you have just seen in a really messy or unreadable way, you can now easily see and sort by. You can even search if you want to see, for example, etc. Right below etc, as you can see here, you can find it easily with the search functionality. Now we can see that a lot of tests have been run through. And again, the title of the presentation was against the MITRE or MITRE tag framework. So now we can click on those tags like MITRE persistence, and we can have a nice filtered view what those persistence MITRE framework mappings could have been, like right below etc, right below root. Again, many things that modify or write something on your file system. I can go back and look in the dashboard once more, and I can have a look at MITRE privilege escalation, for example, because this seems to be straightforward as it is just one rule. And yes, it is because a privileged container has been launched. Again, I can see here all the informations that Falco, together with the Atomic Red testing framework, has gathered, and I can drill deeper in what is going on in regards of here. So let's sum it up. Falco, or the Falco security framework, together with Atomic Red, is not only a security framework you can apply to your environment right now, but you also have effective measurements of how good your security is actually. Please feel free to contact us on any questions on the topic as stated now, and we are more than happy to work with you together in your environment to get you enabled in regards of Falco or Sysdig, and we hope to see you soon on the next event. Thank you very much for your time, and we are looking forward to hear from you.